Every other Friday, the cycle repeats itself. Your paycheck arrives, and for a brief moment, everything feels fine. Then the rent gets withdrawn, the car payment disappears, the credit card minimum hits, and before you know it, by Tuesday you're checking your account balance again, wondering how everything vanished so quickly. At the exact same time, someone earning roughly what you earn is quietly turning that paycheck into something much bigger. Not overnight riches, but genuine wealth. And from the outside, you can't figure out what secret they're using. Here's the frustrating part. They're probably not doing anything extraordinary. In fact, most of what they're doing could be started next week. The standard for getting ahead of the majority of people isn't some impossible mountain. It's practically lying on the ground. It comes down to 6 boring choices. And one particular number, smaller than the price of a used car, quietly puts you ahead of more than half the population the moment you reach it. My name is Della, and I spend way too much time trying to understand why some people steadily move forward while everyone else seems trapped in place. Give me the next 20-something minutes, and I'll walk you through 6 simple decisions that most people never learn. But before we get into those 6 decisions, I want to clear something up because the phrase, ahead of 97% of people, they need some context. There are 2 ways to interpret it. Let's start with the literal meaning. The top few percent of households in America have net worths somewhere above $7.5 million. And no, I'm not about to promise you'll build $7.5 million by the end of this video because that would make me a salesman instead of an honest person. That kind of wealth usually takes decades, consistency, and yes, some luck. But that's not the version that actually matters. Because one thing nobody talks about openly is just how enormous the gap is between doing absolutely nothing and simply doing the basics. It's massive. The median American household sits around a net worth of roughly $220,000. Sounds impressive until you realize much of that number comes from home equity and older Americans in their 60s and 70s. Take away housing. Focus on people under 40. Suddenly the picture changes dramatically. Many people in their 20s and 30s have net worths barely larger than the price of a decent vacation. Some are underwater entirely. They owe more than they actually own. Which means the real goal isn't $7 million. It's much simpler. Become someone who saves consistently, invests steadily in boring index funds, and avoids the financial traps blowing up everyone around them. Do those 3 things and you won't merely edge ahead of the crowd. You'll leave it behind. Let me introduce someone we'll call Tom because Tom is going to be our main character today. Tom feels behind. He's 32 years old. He has a decent job. His car works fine. But every time he opens Instagram, there's this nagging feeling that everybody else his age somehow got the manual for life and he missed the meeting. Right now, there's a 401k enrollment email sitting unopened in his inbox. It's been there for nearly 4 years. Unread. Ignored. Every time Tom sees pictures of friends buying homes, traveling to Europe, or posting photos of spotless kitchens and picture-perfect lives, he assumes they've figured out something he hasn't. Keep Tom in mind. We'll come back to him later, and trust me, where his story goes might surprise you. But before we get into the 6 decisions, you need to understand how incredibly low the bar really is. Because once you see it, getting ahead stops feeling impossible and starts feeling strangely unfair, in your favor. Here's the reality. Remember that number I mentioned earlier? The one smaller than a used car? This is it. Put aside a few $1,000s in a regular savings account. Build an emergency fund. That's it. Do that, and you've already accomplished something more than half of Americans struggle to do. It's not exciting. It's not glamorous. It's just a boring number sitting inside a boring account. Yet it already places you ahead of millions of people. Survey after survey shows that roughly 4 out of 10 Americans couldn't handle an unexpected $600 expense with cash. $600. That's 1 car repair, 1 emergency vet visit, 1 medical bill. And more than half couldn't cover a surprise $1,000 expense from savings without borrowing money or reaching for a credit card. The retirement numbers are even more concerning. You'd assume people approaching retirement would have accumulated substantial savings. Many haven't. The median retirement account balance for Americans nearing retirement age is shockingly small, far below what they'd realistically need to stop working comfortably. A huge percentage of people are going to reach age 65 with little more than Social Security and hope. And it's not because Americans don't earn money. It's because of what happens to the money after they earn it. The average person carries credit card balances, finances vehicles with monthly payments now averaging over $750, often stretched over 6, 7, or even 8 years. And they treat their checking account like the finish line instead of the starting line. Money comes in. Money immediately goes back out. Nothing stays behind long enough to grow. That's not an income problem. That's a leak problem. And unlike your salary, leaks are something you can actually fix. And I want to be clear about something because there's one rule I refuse to break. I'm not telling you this so you can feel superior. And you shouldn't. These aren't stupid people. They're teachers, nurses, warehouse workers, ordinary people who simply weren't taught any of this. Nobody sat them down at 22 and explained compound interest. School taught them that mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, then pushed them into a world specifically designed to separate them from their money. Nobody handed them a map. So if this sounds familiar, if you've made some of these mistakes yourself, don't confuse that with some character flaw. Remember that thought. Because we're coming back to it. So if the bar is really this low, why does getting ahead feel so hard? Why are so many people, including those making great incomes, still struggling? Because there's a trap. And honestly, it might be the most important thing I'll tell you all day. Income is not wealth. That's the biggest misunderstanding in personal finance. Income isn't wealth. Meet Maya. Maya earns almost twice what Tom makes. She has the expensive truck, the vacation cabin, the luxury watch, and the huge house with a kitchen straight out of a magazine. To everyone around her, she looks successful. But financially, she's trapped. Every dollar she earns is already spoken for before it reaches her bank account. Mortgage payments, car payments, lifestyle upgrades, everything depends on the next paycheck arriving on time. She's not wealthy. She's highly paid and highly obligated. That's lifestyle inflation, the silent wealth killer. Every raise gets swallowed by bigger expenses. More income simply creates more expensive problems. And here's the irony. Even people who invest often sabotage themselves. Research has shown that average investors consistently earn several percentage points less than the funds they own. Why? Because emotions take over. Markets fall, they panic and sell. Markets rise, they rush and late. They buy high and sell low repeatedly. Meanwhile, studies show that frequent traders underperform people who simply leave their investments alone. Even most professional fund managers fail to beat simple index funds over long periods. Which means the problem isn't intelligence. It's behavior. And behavior is something you can control. Now let's meet Sarah. Same age as Tom. Same salary. Same life. But one quiet Sunday afternoon, with coffee getting cold beside her laptop, she spent an hour setting everything up, and then stopped worrying about money. That one afternoon would end up being worth more than years of raises. Decision 1, save first. When you're starting out, your savings rate matters far more than investment returns. If you have $1,000 invested and the market grows 10%, you've made $100. But saving an extra $200 every month adds nearly $2,500 a year. Early on, your ability to save is more powerful than the market. Sarah automatically saves 20% before she ever sees her paycheck. Tom saves whatever remains at the end of the month. Usually, nothing. And if 20% sounds impossible, start smaller. $25. $50. The amount isn't the key. The habit is. Instead of letting future raises increase your spending, let them increase your savings. Same income. Completely different future. Decision 2, take the free money. If your employer offers a 401k match, use it. It's one of the few guaranteed returns you'll ever get. Put in $1, and your company may add another $1 instantly. That's an immediate 100% gain. Yet millions of dollars in matching contributions go unclaimed every year because people never fill out the forms. Tom kept putting it off because it felt complicated. Sarah completed it during her first week at work. Same employer. One accepted a pay raise. The other ignored it. Decision 3, destroy high-interest debt. Before chasing investment returns, eliminate credit card debt. Why? Because credit cards charge over 20% interest, while the stock market historically averages around 10%. Trying to invest while carrying 22% debt is like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Paying off that debt is equivalent to earning a guaranteed 22% return with zero risk. Nothing else comes close. So before building wealth, stop the leaks first. Because everything up to this point is defense. And now, it's finally time to start playing offense. Now that the leaks are plugged, it's time to build wealth. Think of your money flowing through a simple system. First, keep a small emergency fund. Second, grab the full employer match. Third, eliminate high-interest debt. Decision 4, open a Roth IRA. After that, fund a Roth IRA. You pay taxes on the money today, but all future growth and withdrawals in retirement are tax-free. For 2026, you can contribute up to about $8,000. It's one of the best tax advantages available, yet most people never open one. Decision 5, maximize your 401k. Once the Roth is funded, go back and increase your 401k contributions beyond the company match. For 2026, you can shelter roughly $25,000 from taxes. This allows more money to compound while reducing your current tax bill. Decision 6, use a taxable brokerage account. If you've maxed out everything else, simply open a regular brokerage account and keep buying low-cost index funds. That's the entire ladder. Emergency fund matched at Roth IRA 401k brokerage account. No secret investments. No complicated strategies. Just consistency. Now let's talk about the numbers. Suppose you're 25 and invest only $250 per month into a broad index fund. Nothing fancy. Just steady investing. Assuming long-term returns near 10%, by age 65 that account could grow to around $1.5 million. You would personally contribute barely over $120,000. The remaining $1.3 million comes from compound growth. Increase that amount to $550 a month, and your final balance can exceed $3.3 million. That's not because you're investing huge amounts. It's because time is doing most of the work. But here's the expensive mistake. Tom waits. Instead of starting at 25, he starts at 35 and invests the same $550 monthly. By age 65, he ends up with roughly $1.3 million. Sarah, who started 10 years earlier, finishes with over $3 million. A 10-year delay creates a difference of nearly $2 million. Not because Tom invested millions less. He only contributed around $65,000 less. The missing ingredient was time. Which means procrastination may be the costliest financial decision you'll ever make. Every year you delay in your 20s can cost several years of contributions later. Your earliest dollars are your most valuable dollars. And there's another hidden expense people ignore: fees. A low-cost index fund may charge almost nothing. Many actively managed funds charge around 1%. That sounds harmless, but over decades that 1% can quietly consume more than $250,000 from your portfolio while often producing worse returns. So keep fees low. Let simple investments do the heavy lifting. Because boring wins. Take a second and forget the numbers. Forget the charts. Forget social media. Because if you've been sitting there thinking, I'm too late. Everyone else is ahead. I already messed this up. I need you to hear this. You are not behind. You've been playing a game where nobody ever explained the rules, then blaming yourself for losing. And the evidence proves it. Researchers studied more than 10,000 real American millionaires, and the results destroy almost every myth people believe about wealth. Most of them, around 8 out of 10, didn't inherit money. They built it. Their most common careers weren't celebrities, athletes, or tech founders. They were engineers, teachers, accountants, ordinary people with ordinary incomes. And the number one strategy they shared? Not day trading. Not crypto. Not picking winning stocks. Not timing the market. They consistently invested through their retirement accounts for decades and simply let time do the work. That's it. No secret club. No magic formula. Just boring decisions repeated long enough. And that's why nobody talks about it. Because boring doesn't go viral. Nobody gets millions of views by saying, I quietly bought index funds for 30 years. But boring is exactly what works. And here's the beautiful part. Real wealth isn't about yachts or private jets. It's much quieter than that. It's opening your banking app without anxiety. It's hearing your car make a strange noise and thinking, that's annoying, instead of, this will ruin me. It's saying yes to vacations, weddings, and dinner with friends without secretly worrying about money the entire time. It's looking at a job you hate and knowing you have options. Because that's what money actually buys. Freedom. The freedom to say no. The freedom to walk away. The freedom to breathe. That's what being ahead of 97% really feels like. Not a flashy life. A peaceful one. And peace is a lot closer than the world wants you to believe. So let's check back in with Tom and Sarah. 10 years later, the scoreboard looks completely different. Same job. Same income. Same opportunities. But Sarah made one decision. She automated everything. Savings happened automatically. Her employer match happened automatically. Her index funds were purchased automatically. She didn't rely on motivation. She removed herself from the equation. That's the hidden weapon of quiet millionaires. They make the decision once, and automation takes over forever. Tom kept waiting. He would start after the next raise. After things settled down. After he learned more. After the perfect time arrived. It never did. 10 years disappeared the same way weekends always do. Tom isn't lazy. Tom isn't stupid. Tom is normal. He's most people. And most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they never make the boring decisions. And the boring decisions are the whole game. Which means today, you get to choose. Not next year. Not after another raise. Today. You don't need a finance degree. You don't need to predict markets. You don't need a higher salary. You need to automate a small amount. Grab the free match. Eliminate high-interest debt. Buy simple low-cost index funds. And then do something almost superhuman. Nothing. Let time and compound growth do the heavy lifting. Because 97% of people never do. Not because they can't, but because nobody ever handed them the map. Well, now you have it. Pick one thing. Just one. And do it before you go to sleep tonight. Because someday, the future version of you, the one with choices instead of obligations, is going to look back at this exact moment and realize. This was the day the math finally started working for you instead of against you. And that's when everything changes. And if all of this sparked something in you, if you're serious about actually changing your financial future instead of simply consuming another video and forgetting about it by tonight, that's exactly why I created a community around this stuff. Not a place full of gurus. Not a room promising overnight riches. Just regular people trying to make better decisions together. People sharing what's working. People asking questions they were afraid to ask elsewhere. People keeping each other accountable when life gets busy and old habits try to creep back in. Because building wealth isn't complicated. But it is easier when you're not doing it alone. And now, let's finish Tom and Sarah's story. 10 years have passed. Same careers. Same income range. Same starting point. But the difference between them is staggering. Sarah spent one afternoon setting up automatic contributions and then got on with her life. She didn't wake up every morning motivated. She didn't obsess over stock charts. She simply made the decision once and allowed the system to work month after month. That's the real secret behind quiet millionaires. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems. Tom, meanwhile, kept waiting for the perfect moment. When he got the next promotion. When life slowed down. When he felt more confident. When he finally understood everything. But the perfect moment never arrived. Years turned into a decade. And that enrollment form sitting in his inbox? Still unread. Still something he'd get around to eventually. Tom isn't a failure. He's not irresponsible. He's simply doing what most people do. And that's exactly the problem. Because the boring decisions are the game. Nothing flashy. Nothing exciting. Just small choices repeated long enough. The good news? You get to choose your ending starting today. Not next month. Not after another raise. Today. You don't need a 6-figure salary. You don't need to become an investing expert. You don't need to predict recessions or understand every earnings report. You just need to start. Automate what you can. Capture the free money. Eliminate expensive debt. Invest consistently. And then have the patience to let time do what time has always done. Because most people never lose because they lack intelligence. They lose because nobody gave them a map. Well, now you have one. So before you close this video, pick the easiest step. Just one. And do it tonight. Because years from now, the future version of you, the one with peace, options, and freedom, is going to look back on this moment and realize something incredible. This wasn't the day you got rich. It was the day you finally stopped moving backward. And sometimes, that's where real wealth begins. Before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Nobody accidentally becomes financially secure. People accidentally stay broke. They accidentally spend every raise. They accidentally let debt pile up. They accidentally put off investing for someday. And one day, they wake up wondering where the years went. But wealth is intentional. Not because it requires genius. Not because it requires perfect timing. But because it requires a decision. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to change your entire life tonight. You don't need to save thousands. You don't need to become Warren Buffett. You don't need to read 50 books on investing. You just need one small win. Open the retirement account. Increase your contribution by 1%. Set up an automatic transfer. Pay off one credit card. Do something. Because momentum beats motivation every single time. And here's the truth nobody selling flashy lifestyles wants you to hear. Most wealthy people don't live exciting financial lives. They don't spend their days staring at stock charts. They don't constantly chase the next hot investment. They're busy living. Their money quietly works in the background while they focus on family, hobbies, careers, and the people they love. That's the destination. Not endless hustle. Not showing off. Not proving anything to anyone. Just having enough freedom that money stops being the center of every decision. And maybe that's what being ahead really means. Not having more stuff. Having fewer worries. More choices. More peace. Because at the end of the day, money isn't the goal. Life is. Money is simply the tool that buys you time, flexibility, and options. So if you've made it this far, don't let this become another video you enjoyed and forgot. Take one action before you close the app. Not tomorrow. Not next Monday. Tonight. Because future you isn't waiting for perfection. Future you is waiting for a beginning. And years from now, you'll realize something amazing. You won't remember the exact market returns. You won't remember what the S&P 500 did this year. You won't remember which headlines scared everyone. You'll remember that one ordinary day when you finally decided to put yourself first. The day you stopped hoping things would change. And started making them change. And trust me, the future version of you will be incredibly grateful that you did. So start small. Stay boring. Be patient. And let time do what time has always done. Because the ladder out isn't hidden. It's right in front of you. And now, you know exactly where the first step is. I'll see you in the next one.